Those are powerful, powerful affirmations. Can you feel them? Do you want them? Do you dare say them yourselves? Will you say them with me? Move me, mold me, fill me, use me. Those are affirmations of surrender to that living spirit of love that Reverend Davis was telling us is always present within us and here among us and is always in this house. It's why, the presence of that spirit is why we can do hard things. It's why I can do hard things. And it helps me to say that to myself before I do certain things, like before I have to make a difficult phone call, or before I get myself out the door to go to the YWCA to work out, or before I preach for the first time in 2 months and at our first service in the sanctuary in 15 months. I can do hard things. And you can do hard things. I wonder how many of you wrote down on your Post-it, I can do hard things, when you were writing down affirmations. If you didn't, I invite you to write it down right now or to say that aloud, because there's people right near you that you can talk to. Turn around and look at each other with your masks on and say, I can do hard things. Yes, if there's one thing we know, after 15 months of staying at home and of fearing for our very lives and for life itself, it feels like, in so many ways, after 15 months of doing one hard thing after another, and getting used to doing those hard things, wearing masks and staying apart and staying home, now the world is knocking on our door and saying, come out, come in, come on. And some of us are ready, even eager, and if you're here this morning, that may sound like you. And it's amazing how our presence here together, how powerful our presence is. I see tears in so many people's eyes at just making eye contact with each other. And some of us got used to staying at home and would just as well stay there a little bit longer. And if you're happy online this morning, that may sound like you. But what I'm noticing is that even the natural solitaries among us are coming out and coming in. Our staff met all together at church outside in the garden last week to say goodbye to our intern minister, Karen Marsh. And we had a pastoral care team gathering at the Leaser's home on Tuesday evening, and several self-identified introverts, often our caregivers are more introverted than not, even they teared up as they told us that it was worth coming out. And I officiated at a memorial yesterday in Bixby, Oklahoma, for a member, Ed Sager, who died at the beginning of the pandemic. We've done hard things, and so we know we can do hard things again. It's really the definition of resilience. All the world is full of suffering, Helen Keller said, continuing. It is also full of overcoming. When we had to, we stayed home. We didn't visit our loved ones in or out of state. Some of us lost loved ones and had to grieve privately and alone. And now, the world is knocking at the door, thank you, saying, come out, come in, come on, let's get moving. So to help us meet this moment, we've chosen emergence for our theme this summer, emergence. And so I have a few questions for you for you to consider this morning and this week as you begin your summers. I think our online chat hosts and ushers and greeters will be posting these questions in the chat for you. Can you remember a time when you came out in your life before and what gave you the courage to be so brave? Remember a time when you came out before and why? And what helped you emerge or reemerge? And what was holding you back? What was keeping you stuck before you did? These are really important things to remember and claim and own and name, because we know hard times are going to come again. We know we'll face new challenges. This past week, the past year, past 100 years, but really this past week in Tulsa offers us plenty of evidence that as individuals and as a congregation and as a city, we know how to do hard things. And still experiencing the centennial of the race massacre itself has been different for each and every one of us, just as the pandemic has been different for each and every one of us. You, and it's so wonderful to see you, I'm seeing more and more faces and people. Y'all have told me that it's felt like Tulsa's being exposed or even overexposed or blamed. You've told me it feels like we're being held accountable, finally, that Tulsa's finally facing itself, and that's freeing, even promising. You've told me it's been confusing and uncomfortable. You've told me it's been painful and powerful. You've asked, are we celebrating or grieving? Are we honoring or organizing? Some of us were more ready than others to emerge from the personal confinement to the public exposure of national press coverage. And we were grateful that others were ready, even eager to speak out and to be present. Wherever you've been, it's clear we can do hard things. And it's clear that the hardest things are often the most healing things. Exposure and emergence. To emerge literally means to make something visible, is often what's needed to heal. Without a diagnosis, a physician can't successfully treat a physical illness. We all know that. But the same is true with social or psychological illnesses and systemic illnesses. Healing, including healing trauma, involves recognizing, accepting, and moving through pain. Healing, including healing trauma, involves recognizing, accepting, and moving through pain. Those words were written by Resmaa Menakem, a counselor, social worker, family life consultant for the U.S. Armed Forces, and current leader in the movement for racial healing in our country. In his book, My Grandmother's Hands, which I can't recommend highly enough, Menakem continues, healing often means facing what we don't want to face, what you've been reflexively avoiding or fleeing. By walking into that pain and experiencing it fully and moving through it, you metabolize it and put an end to it. In the process, you also grow and create more room in your nervous system for flow and coherence and build your capacity for future growth. Clean pain, then, is choosing integrity over fear, leading to more freedom and feeling more grown up and being in a state of flow. Dirty pain, Menakem writes, only creates more pain and keeps us stuck in old stories filled with guilt and shame. Using this framework of clean pain and dirty pain, we can see that all the media exposure is giving us, the people of Tulsa, a chance to choose clean pain after 100 years. And then it's also giving us as individuals a reason to remember that we can each do our own hard things, especially when we know why we're doing them. You may have heard the Into America podcast, Blood on Black Wall Street, Excavating the Past, this past week. And if you haven't, you'll want to. I know, again, online, our online greeters and ushers are going to be posting a link, and you can look on our Facebook page or reach out to us if you need it. In that podcast, Marlon and Joy Avery and Bailey McBride, they each speak about how telling hard truths and how allowing hard truths to emerge, to be seen, leads to healing. I couldn't help but think of one of my favorite passages from Scripture, from the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verse 32. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Earlier this week, I met with a few truth seekers and truth tellers, a few of you, a small group of people who identify as white, who are feeling and finding their way forward, wanting to choose clean pain over shame, over this history we share. Bailey McBride was there, and she gave me permission to share some more pieces of her story which is basically that she discovered last year that her grandfather was here in Tulsa during the massacre, and she hadn't known that before. Now, it would be easy to believe that because Bailey is politically active and professionally engaged with anti-racism work, that going public or emerging with the truth, the tough truth of her grandfather's presence during the race massacre, was easy for her to do. But it wasn't. It was a hard thing she had to do. She had all the same questions and concerns you may have if you're white and your family is from Tulsa. She didn't want to embarrass or expose her family. She didn't want to hurt anyone in her family. And she said something really interesting. She said she had to allow herself to move through all those stages of grief we know about. First, she was in denial. There's no way my grandfather was there. There's no way he would have ridden a horse from Poteau to Tulsa to witness a massacre. No way. And then she had to move through a deep depression. Our family is awful. I must be awful. This history of white people is awful. There's no way any of us, including me, can ever be free of that, feeling this burden. And then she had to move through anger. How could he? How could they? How dare they? I want to distance myself from him, not associate myself with him. And then a terrible sadness. How tragic the story is, how overwhelming and hopelessly, endlessly sad. And then she kept moving, finally, into acceptance. This is what happened. He was there. He did ride a horse from Poteau to Tulsa. It's part of, not all of, it's part of my family history. And now that I know, I can feel all my feelings. I can process it. I can move through the tough feelings and find the freedom today to choose my own way, a new way forward, for the sake of my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. I wanted to tell you a little more about her process because as we reemerge into the collectives that we belong to, into the life of our congregation, into the life of our city and of our country, you and I, can choose clean pain too and help healing happen. We can face and tell the truth about our families in Tulsa and about ourselves. Because we know, as Jenny Clyde reminded me this past week, this is not just a story about an amorphous and anonymous, faceless and nameless white mob. This is a story about our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents. And of course, this is a story about us. Bailey is choosing clean pain. And Marlon has been leading our congregation on the path of choosing clean pain for years, partly in telling the story of one of our founders, Richard Lloyd Jones. And Lois Edwards, who is here today. Lois, masks are hard to see. Lois, will you raise your hand? Lois Edwards is choosing clean pain too. Thank you, Lois. Lois Edwards is an African-American member of All Souls who gave me permission to share with you her recent discovery that her grandmother and her mother were here in Tulsa when the massacre happened. And somehow miraculously, they survived, although they never spoke about it while they were alive. She says it's been heartbreaking and exciting, liberating and empowering at the same time to be uncovering this painful, painful truth. Because now she's allowed, it's opening a way to feel and process the pain. And it's a way to shine a light on the roots of racism so we can better see them as they emerge and uproot them once and for all. So another question for you this morning is, which kind of pain are you choosing in your own lives? And yes, choosing is the word I'm using intentionally because it is a choice. We know there's pain in life. That's certain, unavoidable. But we do get to choose between clean pain, which allows healing to happen, and dirty pain, which keeps us stuck in shame and blame. It's true in the life of this city, in the life of this congregation, and in our personal lives. Writer and concentration camp survivor Viktor Frankl says it this way: between a stimulus and a response, there is space. In that space is the power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom and the possibility of healing. So I want to switch from the political and the public to the private and personal while talking about clean pain and dirty pain and choosing to heal. Some of you may already know that in early April, I went back home to midwife my mother through her dying process. And she didn't ask me to come, and she wondered aloud if I was coming too soon. But like in the story for all ages, I can do hard things. When I was being pulled this way and that way and being pressured by people's opinions and positions and preferences, my siblings and my friends, I listened for that quiet voice inside me, and I let it be my guide. And it knew that it was time. When I arrived in Maine and went to our first visit to my mom's primary care provider, we talked about death. Not as a distant or dubious or doubtful possible outcome or far-off possibility, which is the way most of us like to talk about death. We talked with death, as if death were sitting in a chair in the exam room with us, present, potent, only waiting for its moment to arrive. It freaked both of us out just a little bit, staring death in the eyes like that together. But we do hard things for a reason. We do hard things for our own healing and wholeness. My mother's name is Florence, and she clearly chose not to know where the cancer had returned because she knew she wouldn't want or even allow any kind of treatment, not at 89. And she told all who cared to listen about the folly of using collective resources to care for someone her age, expounding eloquently on her ethics and her preference that those resources be spent on the young. And then, for the next few weeks, when she wasn't resting, she used all her time to say goodbye to those she loved and those who loved her back fiercely. She was generous beyond belief, letting us so close in, allowing us to express our care for her, something that didn't come easily to her, without caring if we witnessed her weakness which was more exposed and emerging ever clearer day by day by day. And she stayed honest. That woman was nothing if not honest. She told us when we were being annoying or silly or selfish, and she almost pleaded with us to be gentle and more patient and more kind with each other. And she performed for us using all the silly voices and old songs and rowdy jokes she knew to make us all laugh, even on her last day. I realized, reflecting this week, that she followed to a T Resmaa Menacem's 3 steps for healing trauma with clean pain. She stood in her integrity. She accepted the discomfort. And she moved forward into the unknown. She stood in her integrity. She accepted the discomfort, and she moved forward into the unknown. And I would add a 4th step. She asked for help, and she let herself receive it. She let us help her. She didn't do it alone. I think it's why so many of us are back in church today, because we want to choose clean pain, and we know we can't do it alone. Healing involves recognizing, accepting, and moving through pain. She couldn't be cured, but she was healed, meaning she grew ever more whole in her dying. By facing her fear and her fate without flinching, without a shred of shame or blame or denial, she chose clean pain and was given a good death. We can all do hard things, the hardest things. You can do the hardest thing you can imagine in your life right now as you allow yourself to emerge and be seen. Of course, only you know what that hard thing is that you're avoiding in your own life. Only you know if it's facing a hard truth about yourself or about a loved one. Only you know if it's daring to speak up more, or if it's a matter of listening more. Only you know if it's about accepting your limitations, or if it's about expecting more of yourself. Just remember this, that as the world knocks on your door and beckons to you, come out, come in, come on. Remember, you can choose clean pain over dirty pain. And you might use some affirmations because they really work. You might say to yourself before you have to do something difficult this week, I can do hard things. I remember how I did something hard before and why I did it. I know why I'm choosing to do a hard thing now. I want to thank Dion for being here this morning and singing for us in just a minute. I want you to take in the words you're about to hear and maybe adapt them as your own. I release my fears. I am standing up to be counted. I am holding my head up high because together we can and we will challenge what the future holds. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you for joining us. For 100 years, All Souls in Tulsa has been a beacon of this free faith. We offer our services and programs freely online for all those who are interested. You can help us to do this by making a one-time gift today or a reoccurring pledge. We really appreciate you joining us and being a part of helping us make All Souls in Tulsa what it is. Thank you.
Sometimes I don't like it. That don't mean I don't love it. Sometimes I get down so low, that don't mean I can't rise above it. Sometimes it's the vast unknown as far as I can see. And sometimes it feels like I'm touching everything, and everything is touching me. Well, I've lost people and money to become the woman I am today. And I'll still be becoming tomorrow, maybe losing, but still choosing her anyway. I know it's a lot to look at all that I got. It's a lot to see who I am and I'm not. But I can laugh and I can love and I can dream. I can do hard things. I look at my babies, I wouldn't trade them for the world. And I've gained joy like I've never known, lost the lightness when I was a girl. And we're told to say that it's better, and it is and it isn't. And I know that there's little black and white, there's little wrong and right, and mostly it's both. I know it's a lot to look at all that I got. It's a lot to see who I am and I'm not. But I can laugh and I can love and I can dream. I can do hard things. Sometimes I can hold it all. I know where I end and where I start. And sometimes it's all way too heavy, and I'm way more than the sum of all my parts. I know it's a lot to look at all that I got. It's a lot to see who I am and I'm not. But I can laugh and I can love and I can dream. I can win or I can lose, it's all the same.